Yo, people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another video. Big up your damn selves in the building. Make sure you smash up the likes every single damn time and subscribe if you are new. Drama and more drama at Chelsea, because it seems like our ownership, which is a consortium, which is a muddle, which is a mess, which is a pile of different entities coming together to try and lead one institution, shockingly, surprisingly, seems to be falling apart, as you'd expect, with the likes of these different minds having different ambitions and visions and how to move this club forward. Let's get into this. Sources coming from Bloomberg are saying that Todd Boehly and Clear Lake Capital, Eghbali, etc., are not really seeing eye to eye, not really aligning, and potentially could separate. And people are trying to, or potentially thinking about, buying each other out in terms of shareholders. Now, we know Clear Lake own at least 60% of Chelsea. They're the majority shareholders. That's Eghbali. That's the entire investment, firm. And then, of course, you've got Todd Boehly, which is a minority shareholder, along with many other minority shareholders as well. But he's the one that was kind of put as the face of the club, the guy that, calls the shots. 3-0 win over Real Madrid, wonderful meals, etc., etc. Now, let me get into it. Let me just read what's been written and then I'll get into my thoughts. But sources say differing opinions on Chelsea's recruitment policy, the team's underperformance, and the failure to make progress on building on a new stadium have all contributed to the rift between Eghbali and Todd Boehly. Right? These are the two big juggernauts coming head to head. Now, I'm not surprised, because we've been following this since they all came in, and there was a sharp contrast between Todd Boehly's methods and his way of doing things and how he wanted to potentially move as a club in regards to bringing in players in that first summer when he was sporting director. It's a very sharp contrast to what we're doing right now. When Todd Boehly arrived in that first summer as the face of it, he was bringing in Raheem Sterling, he was bringing in Koulibaly, he was interested in Cristiano Ronaldo, he was, bringing in Cucurella, Wesley Fofana, experienced and obviously highly paid players in the end on those big wages, which I think has worked to our advantage to move away from that now. But the recruitment policy and the strategy was far, far different to what it is right now. And that, for me, I've said many times actually, that Eghbali, it feels like a change of strategy since he took over. We remember those reports coming out that Todd Boehly was going to take a step back. Ever since that's happened, Eghbali's taken more of a step forward. He's been the one to go and finish off deals in Portugal, potentially for Enzo Fernandez. And he's been the one that's, had to step in front of Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart at times, the directors that he's brought in to push on with this very heavily, very, extreme youth policy that they do under 25s. That's not really a Todd Boehly method of doing things. Now, that if you're joining up all the dots, that kind of all makes sense, right? So now we're going down this very heavy youth policy in terms of recruitment, in terms of signing players. Now, clearly Todd Boehly is not a fan, but because he's a minority shareholder, he is, an individual in comparison to a massive Clear Lake Capital investment firm, which he needed their backing to get the club in the first place, to be able to afford to buy the club. They have my majority. So when they have these meetings and they have these disagreements, Clear Lake Capital, basically Eghbali, who is the face of that, is always going to win in those debates, in those arguments, in those differences, because he has the power, right? That's what a majority shareholder is. So, and it makes sense. An investment firm that basically, manages assets. That's what Clear Lake Capital are. They manage assets. It's literally proof in the pudding for us, right? Are they not managing assets? Are they not bringing in 10 to 12 to 13 young players every summer, on record so far, at least anyway, in the last few transfer windows, and then getting rid of 10 to 12 players each summer or each window, and moving the assets around and trying to, make profits here and there. They bring in an Angelo for 12 million euros. They sell him for 18 million euros. They keep doing this constantly. It's moving assets around. It's exactly what they do to get to the point of having a billion pound company. And it is exactly what they're doing here at Chelsea, moving around assets, making profits, controlling the market, trying to have a grip of the market. And I think, what is happening today is terrible news, because it means that we're not even in one frame of mind in terms of how we move forward as a club. We are not pulling all in the same direction. It's not a surprise to me. And it's why people have concerns about the club and its overall way of doing things and its overall way of going. Because if these guys are managing assets, if everyone is an asset to them, then Can we trust an Eghbali and a Clear Lake Capital to not sell one of our top players when a massive bid comes in and there's a massive profit margin to be made because it's just an asset? Are they looking at the sporting side of things and the achievements? And it clearly seems that maybe Todd Boehly is more ambitious in regards to wanting to win, wanting to be competing at the top level as soon as possible. And that's maybe why his recruitment strategy was a bit more different, a bit more leaning to the experience side. Not that it was even bulletproof, because it clearly wasn't. We were bringing in players that weren't making sense. Aubameyang, Koulibaly, in the end, these guys didn't work out. I like to take it with a pinch of salt because obviously what happened with Thomas Tuchel and the early sacking there, with those players have performed better under his leadership than Graham Potter's. But again, we're getting into it deeper. The next part of this report from Bloomberg is saying that Chelsea backers Clear Lake and Todd Boehly weigh up ownership options. Relations between Eghbali and Todd Boehly have soured. So again, because relationships soured, now we're looking at a situation where, right, can we afford to buy your percentage, or can you afford to buy my percentage, and can we part ways potentially? That's what we're alluding to here when we're having these conversations. Now, just to get into more detail, because Clear Lake Capital, a lot of people maybe not familiar with what they do. Who are they? I've said it before. They are a private equity company. It's an investment firm, and it buys shares in private companies or takes other public companies in order to generate profit. And this is what I'm talking about, managing assets, and really from a Chelsea point of view, as players, right? Private equity companies raise funds from investors such as pension funds, insurance companies, and wealthy individuals, and use those funds to invest in companies and with potential growth. So it's basically it's having an eye for talent, right? Having an eye for something that could be bigger and better than it is, and latching onto it, and then holding it, growing it, and then selling it. That's what they've been doing here at Chelsea, right? So apart from maybe a few instances where people have overpaid and we've managed to bring in players that we probably will not make a profit on, right? Now, the reason why this is concerning is not only is it concerning from a top-end standpoint in regards to the figureheads at the club, we've also had to let go of our CEO, Chris Jurassic Park, whatever you want to call him. He has had to be relieved of his duties, or he's left his post, CEO. This is the same guy that thought we needed 3 points when he was addressing the Chelsea Supporters Trust against Wimbledon in a cup game. He thought we needed 3 points. It's the same guy that called us customers and called the game a product. And it's the same guy that has no interest in football, reportedly, and he told staff that he has no interest in football. Now, people will say, oh, he doesn't need to have an interest in football. I disagree. I think the CEO of a sporting institution where many intangibles are included to have a success at the top level, it's not just about the business side of it. You do actually need to take into account the intangibles. You do need to also create a culture in the club. You do need to create an environment that is, well received, not even by outsiders and rivals. I'm talking about us. Chelsea have gone from a club where a lot of players would leave here and they'd shed a tear. Says Fabregas, to name one. People would hold Chelsea very dearly, very closely when they played for this club, when they represented this club. When they left, it was the worst day of their life. That was quite an honor as a fan to be able to say that. We cannot say the same now. We have definitely not been moving that way recently in regards to the way players have left. In particular, you can look at a Gallagher and potentially a Chalobah if he goes on a permanent. You can look at, many instances, but it's become more of a business in regards to, don't get me wrong, we used to sell people and we used to be cutthroat, but it wasn't 10, 12 players in and out every summer. And it didn't feel like they were, being moved out because there was profit margins to be made, or it was because we wanted to improve as a team and win trophies. With Roman, that was always the goal, win trophies, and I don't care who I have to move to do it. But that came with success and that was justifiable. When there isn't any success as of yet, and you're moving in a very cruel, non-emotional way in regards to your just removing all intangibles, removing all kind of cultural aspects of your club, any sort of, connection, and you're just getting real ruthless, but you're not doing it for the reasons that would actually benefit the fans, which is to win trophies, and you're doing it more for your pockets or for your own profit margins. That's not going to cut it, right? And that's why there's so much pressure to win. Now, he left his post. Shocking appointment in the first place. He was horrendous. I'm glad he's gone. But he was replacing Tom Glick from Manchester City, who came in the first summer under Todd Boehly when he was sporting director, and this is the first summer of Clear Lake. And then he had to be relieved of his duties 10 months later because he reportedly failed to take serious concerns raised by a female agent in regards to sexual advances made by a senior executive he hired days before. So we've had two CEOs, and maybe there's more actually, because now we've just replaced our recently let go CEO with a new one called Jason Gannon, who I think was already at the club previously, is now just been promoted. So we're now into our third CEO. We still have no shirt sponsor on our t-shirt, can I just say, our kit. One thing is for sure, and I'm going to keep saying it, this club has got a lot of improving to do, and it's not being run from top to bottom in the way it needs to be. We can all talk about, 100% seeing Sancho training today in those images and pictures. I am getting excited to see him. I really hope he smashes it. João Felix. These are assets, actually. If you look at it, they're assets that have dropped, have plummeted, but they have potential. There is a potential that they could, get back to their former selves, so we can grow them, develop them, get them back to a higher price point. It's a smart business minded move in that way, I guess you could say, especially for Sancho, because 20-25 million for a player that was worth 100 million, that's what they're going to look at, and they're going to seize that as an opportunity. But these things are only, listing profit margins for each sale and putting it out. That's not going to help the fans. That's not something for us to, celebrate. It's not going to help us. The only thing that fans really should be focusing on celebrating is maybe debuts for youngsters that you've seen come up from all the academy days, and maybe big signings for big players that you've always dreamed to play for your club. But most importantly, trophies, winning cups, leagues, and being dominant and being successful, and obviously enjoying those wins along the way and taking those losses as you have to. But profit margins and, wage bill, as much as it's good and it's healthy for obviously for the club in regards to bringing that wage bill down, it's only important for us really if it's leading to us getting better as a team, higher placed finishes, getting back into the Champions League, being able to incentivize these players to play better or to be more motivated. But if this is just to save money for their pockets, like I said, if it's just to, flip and wheel and deal assets in and out of the club, that is of no use to me. That is of no use to you, whether you choose to believe it or not. And it's not going to be something that in 10, 20 years time, you can tell your grandkids or your kids, oh, Chelsea made this profit on this player, made this cut wage-wise on this player, and sold 10 players for 10 million more than they bought those 10 players in for. That's not something that you can write stories about or, make memories about, even from a, fan perspective of going to games or whatever you wish. You're just not going to be able to force that, I'm afraid. It's not something anybody gives a shit about outside of the people in the suits that own the club, and have, money on the line, so to speak. So listen, for me, I'm not impressed. I'll be honest. I'm not impressed. I'm not happy with it. But my hope and my prayer is that Todd Boehly, does hopefully does get majority ownership, because I do believe his heart is a little bit more in the right place, having, the Dodgers and the sporting background that we know that he has. At least he understands some element of sport inside to this, and the intangibles potentially, even though it is a different sport. But it's more than likely he's the one that's going to get shoved out. He's the one that's going to get moved on. Usmanov versus Kroenkes, if you remember this battle at Arsenal. The minority shareholder usually does lose the fight because, it's self-explanatory. You are a minority shareholder for a reason. How are you going to win that fight unless you get more investment, which means more people, more names, more numbers, more differences of opinions, more problems. So, yeah, not looking forward to the fact that we could be 100% or 80% or 90% owned by Clear Lake Capital if Todd Boehly was to lose his minority percentage, whatever that is. Because when we went into this consortium, and consortiums are always a problem, and this is why, but when we went into this consortium, we wanted Todd Boehly for his sporting expertise, his sporting side of it, not necessarily Clear Lake. Clear Lake was more money, was more, we need their capital. Pardon the pun. We don't really need much more. So yeah, listen, let's see where this goes. But yeah, this may be the start of a long saga, guys. I wasn't actually planning to do this video. I was going to be talking about strikers instead, but we'll save that for over the weekend. Make sure you smash up the likes. Make sure you subscribe. You guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. It looks and appears that our ownership is about to part ways. But that won't happen, I don't think, in the next week, too. It will be something that declines over time. even more if their relationships aren't already very fragile. And we'll see where that all goes. But yeah, smash up the like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. In a bit, people. Peace.